Hey up and welcome to our Set of Six, our news show where we share the good, the great and the noteworthy Rugby League outside the Heartlands. My name's Craig.
My name's Karl, and on this week's Set of Six we'll be talking about a transatlantic team entering the European Rugby League. We'll be talking about the future of England wheelchair rugby, and as always we'll have a Midlands roundup.
Right, Karl, another great week of Rugby League. Some great games, some amazing results. Little Dicky Bird tells me that I also did really well in our prediction round, but more on that later on. So talk to me about some of the criteria for this week's news stories.
Well, it's the usual picked out stories, international, trying to get a wheelchair story in there. We've got some women's rugby stories in there. Community rugby and Super League, so I'm covering every base this week.
Yeah, so as always, this is your little one-stop shop for all things Rugby League. We'll squeeze 6 interesting news stories in. We're really interested in getting your take on stuff, so make sure you use the comments below and share it with anybody else that you think will be interested in this. So, all right, so into our first story then, Karl.
Yeah, so tackle one is Viva Las Vegas. It's coming back around again. They're starting to talk about next year's showdown in Vegas. Warrington Wolves have been tipped to be Super League side taking part in the opening NRL round over in Las Vegas.
Isn't that interesting that it's I saw this and I thought, that's interesting. You know, there's obviously one big reason for that. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But to overlook Wigan, Saints, who've been the forerunning teams, you know, of the Super League era, you know, besides Leeds, maybe on the outside, Warrington seems to have a bit more razzmatazz and a bit more of exciting rugby than some of these other teams that are perhaps doing a little bit better. It's dead interesting.
Yeah, but it's obviously heavily led by the NRL, and with that, you know, it's no surprise that Sam Burgess is the big name still in Australia. You know, he's now coaching Warrington, so I think Warrington has a massive appeal, certainly to the Australian audience. Yeah, and he's flying at the minute, so you know, why wouldn't you want Warrington there?
Do you think it's a case of, there's complete speculation, there's no facts on this or anything like that, but it's not what you know, it's who you know? Do you think there's a bit of that in there?
Oh, yeah, 100%, yeah, definitely. It's like I say, he's a huge name in Australia and in the UK. There was a lot of fans that went to Vegas last year from the UK. I think they said there was 1,000 fans there. You stick a Super League team into that, you're going to get 4,000-5,000 fans travelling over. It's a smart move by the NRL, I think. Yeah,
it's definitely a smart move, and it was an absolute blockbuster event, you know, unrivaled, I think, anywhere else in the world. For an English team, British team to be involved in that is massive. And imagine how exciting that would be if you're a Warrington player, a Warrington fan, to go out to Vegas. I mean, it's just like proper stag do stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, play at the home of the Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, should I say? There was talk about the World Club Challenge going there, but rumours heavily now that it's just going to be a standalone Super League fixture. So I think if Warrington are sort of tipped to be the favourite, it's going to be interesting to see who they're going to face. I would probably say it'll be a Saints or Wigan. Yeah,
it's got to be. I mean, we can't see any other team getting involved. Catalan maybe, but I don't think they're.
Yeah, that'd add an extra layer of flavour to it, wouldn't it?
So if Warrington are tipped, what have they got to do to definitely be involved, and what have they got to avoid to definitely be discounted?
Well, it's no use asking me because I'm not making the decision.
No, but it's in your opinion. You know, I'm interested in your opinion.
I think they've already done what they need to do to get themselves there. They've already made a final. They don't want to collapse like they had last season because I think Warrington at this point last year were in the same position. We're sort of top of the table, which is where they're sat now after beating Catalan at the weekend. They collapsed last year after this point. So as long as they're consistent and they make the playoffs, I think the hype's already around them. I don't think there's anything else they need to do.
I don't know if I slightly disagree. I think they've got to win some silverware. I think they've got to win some, in order to be like true contenders. Otherwise, they're a bit part team going to play in this massive competition. You know what the NRL's like, you know, they think they're a standard above us and all this kind of thing. I don't think they'll invite an English team into those ranks
that's not won anything.
That's not won something, you know. I know. I think the Sam Burgess connection is massive. I think that's a massive part of why. Plus, the way that Warrington are going about the business right now, and George Williams, exciting, you know. But I think really to be true contenders, they've got to win some silverware. And I think as long as they can, I don't know, maybe win the Challenge Cup, finish in the top 3, I think they're in good stead to be involved. I think if they're outside the top 4 and don't win anything, I think they may like drop out of that leading, that contention to be involved.
Yeah, but I think the decision's probably going to be made before then anyway with such events like this. So they've just got to keep riding that wave that they're doing. And talking about Warrington, we may as well mention this week's fixture against Catalan. Again, backed it up what they did in the Challenge Cup, and they were absolutely brilliant again.
They were solid. Some of the shapes we were throwing were just immense. And what I see is just players playing for each other, you know, and just putting everything out. They're staying like tight-knit, connected, and just Dufty. He's just magic. He's got to be like Man of Steel contender. He's got to be.
He reminds me of that. You remember the season when Tompkins was like head and shoulders above? And they were running certain lines, and it just made Tompkins. I don't know if Tompkins was just that good or it was Wigan's structure, but something's right at Warrington with their attacking flair. They're putting him in gaps, and he's just ripping teams up. So they're exciting to watch.
Do you know? He's like Bevan French mixed with Rob Burrow, Matt Dufty. You know what I mean? He is. He's just like he just seems to get under big players, dance around them, breaks tackles that are just like I don't know. It's like magical how he does it. So really exciting to watch.
Yeah, and I think look, they're deservedly sitting at the top of the tree at the minute, and yeah, it's good to see actually. There's a big buzz around Warrington at the minute, and the crowds are going up. And, you know, they took a massive following to Perpignan this weekend. So yeah, it's exciting to see.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next story then, Karl.
So tackle 2 is the Future of England wheelchair rugby league fixture took place this weekend in York. We mentioned it on last week's show. There was a youth festival took place first. Bradford Bulls took on York in a championship fixture before, and then we had I think it was Green versus Amber team took place. Basically, players that are fringe England players, just on the outskirts of the squad at the minute, looking to push their way into the team.
Yes, I mean, was there any like direct outcome of this game? You know what I mean? Like, have they had positions promised? Will they be involved in the elite training camp later in the, you know, what was the kind of the fallout from the game? Or was it just a case of showcasing your skills and being in the mix?
Yeah, I think it's very much a case of showcasing your skills. Tom Coyd, head coach, I think selected the two sides to balance them out, and he's clearly looking at players that he could be looking to include in the next World Cup.
Okay, and from there we've got an interview with Tom, which we pre-recorded, so we can listen to that now. All right, okay, so we're lucky enough to speak with Tom Coyd, the current head coach of England Wheelchair. Tom, thank you for spending a bit of time and chatting to us today.
Morning, guys. Great to speak to you as always.
Tom, we'll jump into the Future of England, which took place this weekend. Just for our viewers, can you just tell us a little bit how this fixture came about? And that would be a good place to start, really.
Yeah, well, I'll start us back 18th of November 2022, which was the England lifting the Wheelchair Rugby League World Cup. And since that moment, the sport has completely boomed, more than we were prepared that it would. And if I'm being honest, our planning had only gone as far as 9:30 p.m. on the 18th of November. We really weren't ready for anything that was going to come after that. And what has come is more than doubling of the player pool, more than doubling of the amount of active teams playing at every level of the competition. And that's meant that our development pathway wasn't really catering for many of those players who weren't on our national performance squad with England. They had some amazing emerging talent, but they weren't really being carried through a meaningful development pathway. They were playing well for their clubs. Yeah. They weren't quite breaking into the top level England squad, and they were just kind of stuck in limbo. So the Future of England event was my aim to give them an opportunity to play under bright lights in front of a big crowd with pressure and consequence, more than they would get playing at their Championship or Super League clubs, and try and replicate what a test match would feel like, to see how they coped with it.
And Tom, just talk me through the run up to this fixture then. Did you get a chance to have these? Obviously, you've been looking at these players in the Super League and you've been keeping an eye on people. Did you get a chance to have these groups of players together for a sort of pre-run or training session before the event?
We did. So me and my staff put together a national development program which focused on our three key stakeholders in the sport. First one being players, of course. And we had 19 players come to 2 development days. So one was in York and one was in Hull, sort of like end of April and beginning of May. And then the other 2 stakeholders which we wanted to develop were the coaches at the Championship, Super League and development clubs, and also the referees who are working in the competition. So we threw the doors open to any coach or anyone who was interested in being a coach, and all of the match officials as well, to come and watch how England train. So we trained the players exactly how we would at a national performance squad session. We let the coaches observe. We had several kind of discussions with them during the day about why the session plan was the way it was and what we were trying to get out of the players. And then towards the end of the day, when we played matches, the match officials came in and facilitated those, so they got extra refereeing practice. And it was like a holistic, trying to target every key stakeholder of our sport, not necessarily saying that the way that England do things is the way to do it, but it's our way of doing it. And if we can get people together and sharing ideas, then that's going to help everybody. And
is this sort of your own idea, or are you modelling a different sport and what's happened in other sports? Or, how did the original idea come about?
So wheelchair rugby league has lots of similarities with running rugby league, of course, and similarities with other team sports. But what it also has is some real nuances and unique characteristics because of the population that play and coach within it. And people who are wheelchair users, people who don't work full time because of their disability, obviously have different habits, different behaviours to the kind of general population, if you like, the majority of people who do work full time and aren't a wheelchair user. So while we did take ideas from, what you see in county rugby union models and things like that, where it's like you get regional talent together and train them and see how they perform on a representative level. We really listened to feedback and bounced ideas off of, the people who we were trying to service. And I've got to shout out Dave Banks, who is the assistant coach with me at England Wheelchair, because it was his original brainchild to say, we need to put some kind of program together to capture these emerging talented England players, because we might miss them otherwise. They might get their head turned by another sport. And we really want to get them in and get them to fall in love with the England badge, so that we've got that upward pressure of really, really promising players, putting pressure on people like Lewis King, Tom Halliwell, Seb Bashara, these established England players, to keep forcing them to get better. And also what was arguably more important was upskilling the coaches, because they're the people that are helping the players on a week to week, whereas we're only seeing them a few times a year.
And then the actual logistics of, did they bring their own chairs? Did you have a group of chairs that they could use? How did that work?
So the logistics was part of the test, to be honest, because we need our players to be self-sustaining. We need them to take their kind of engagement in the sport seriously. So most of the players are at a point where they've got their own chair, either through, like a sponsor and funding, or the support of their clubs. So the clubs will have kind of assigned them a chair. And all part of the test to see if they were ready to be part of an England program was, can they get their chair there? Can they transport it, whether in their own vehicle, or they've got a loving parent or friend who's going to run them there and back? Can they make sure that their tyres are pumped up, that the bearings are greased and not full of dust from a sports hall floor. And it was all part of observing what their character was like, as well as their playing ability, because you really don't know what sort of person's going to turn up. It could be anyone kind of looking good in a Super League game or a Championship game, but it's not until you ask them to get out of that environment and come into a brand new one, see how they react, that you really understand what sort of person they are.
And Tom, just touching on the teams then that you selected for this, obviously been keeping an eye on people. A couple of names I recognise who sort of been in and around the England camp before. Jack Heggie, Adam Rigby, Freya Levy, has she been in the England camp before?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so tell me how you went about picking the two squads then for the competition, and really give a bit of a shout out to anyone who's really been pushing the boundaries this year.
So we had a national performance squad last year, of which 7 players didn't play for England.
Yes. So
all of those 7 were kind of transferred into this development program to give them more opportunities to train with England, but also as kind of a leadership role, really, because they've got experience of what an England camp looks like. So they were first and foremost our cultural architects, if you like. If we had a brand new, fresh group, it would have been a lot harder for them to understand how to behave, what to do and when to do it, like on the pitch and off the pitch. So we had people like, as you say, Jack Heggie, Tom Martin, Ewan Clibbins, Adam Rigby, Jason Owen, Freya Levy, and Tristan Norfolk, who was pulling up trees for Hull FC last season. They've all came into the national development program and joined a group of people who have never been, some of them at a representative engagement in wheelchair, like for any home nation, or, it may be their first representative engagement in sport. So, they're coming in real kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yeah.
There was two players from the Sheffield Eagles who play in the Championship, Chris Haynes and Stephen Riley. So to have 2 players come up from the Championship was hugely exciting, because, you'd assume that it would only be Super League players we're looking for, but we tried to cast a really wide net.
And that must be massive for them, because Sheffield Eagles is not long formed, has it, as a wheelchair setup?
Their growth has been incredible. They were getting going the year before the World Cup happened, and they're now in a position where they can run 3 teams, including a women's only team. They could probably run 2 women's only teams and a youth team, so like under 16s. I didn't realise how much of a hotbed Sheffield would be for wheelchair rugby league, but they've got a great relationship with the EIS there, a great relationship with their foundation and the running game club. So yeah, they're just absolutely flying at the moment.
Tom, just sort of looking forward, what's coming up in the near to medium term for England wheelchair rugby league at the minute?
So we're going to let the dust settle from the big game yesterday. We had 8 players aside, just going hammer and tong, really, and they knew that it was effectively a trial match for our national performance squad. Yeah, it was also great to see we had 3 players from the southeast: Mason Billington, Jason Owen, and Freya, who played for the London Roosters. So that representation outside of Rugby League Heartlands was amazing to see. And Dave Banks and I have got a tough challenge on our hands, because we've got to select the national performance squad for 2024 now. And that's going to be announced on Thursday of this week. So that squad will then carry through. Yes. Super League season kicks off in 2 weeks. So it would be a week on Saturday, I think, the first round of Super League. And we'll be training with that national performance squad to prepare for 3 test matches, which are soon to be announced at the end of this season. So end of October through to November, we've got 3 test matches lined up.
Excellent. And I know you were not going to want to give anything away regarding your squad, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Without being too disrespectful, some of the England elite players, it is a little bit of an ageing squad now, isn't it? Are we going to expect to see new faces within that squad pushing into that squad this year?
100%. Yeah. And it's not just for the sake of it because we've done this development program and we want to be able to say that we carried people through from it.
Yeah,
I think it's so important that there's a transparent and open door pathway to the elite level, both for the people at the bottom of the pyramid who have that ambition and want to be able to carry that hope, but also for the guys who have been sat at the top for a long time, who just might be getting a little bit complacent. And if we bring that new blood through, it just gives everyone a kick up the butt, and it makes me coach better, because you want to impress new players when they come in. You want to show them how good the program can be. So there'll definitely be more than a couple of brand new faces coming in this year.
Tom, it's always an absolute pleasure to hear you speak. I think you speak incredibly well and very passionate about the sport. I think a lot of Super League coaches could learn a lot from the way that you speak about your sport. So thanks from me for sharing your time with us.
Yeah, and from me, Tom. Yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds for England Wheelchair Rugby League. I can't wait to see the squad, and I'm looking forward to seeing the fixtures announced as well.
Craig, Karl, great to speak to you as always. I so appreciate your support of our sport. And I've also got a little bit more empathy for you now from putting on our own festival. I've probably lost as much hair as you did putting on the Midlands 9. So I'm right there with you guys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom.
Tom, thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Okay, so from wheelchair news to some Midlands Premier news.
Yeah, I got a chance to go watch some Midlands Rugby League this week. First chance I've actually had to go see some community rugby league. We went to Telford to watch Telford Raiders v Nottingham Outlaws, and it did not disappoint. It was an absolute cracking game.
Yeah, it was really close. I mean, it sensed like it was going to be a close game anyway in the warm-up and everything. Raiders were looking snappy. I think sometimes they've been guilty of starting a little bit slow, but they looked snappy in their warm-up. Nottingham just looked calm, collected. I didn't watch much of their warm-up, but, they're always a decent outfit, aren't they? So, really, really exciting game in prospect.
Yeah, Nottingham came over. They had 16 players and really showed the professionalism of the outfit, really. Very well-coached side. If I sort of play out the game... Telford made a few unforced errors. Nottingham really respected the ball. They just played out their sets time and time again. Even when they were getting to fifth tackle, they weren't worried about kicking it. If they were in the sort of Telford 20-metre area, they were quite happy just to play the last tackle out, take it as close as they could, and then concentrate on their defence. They really backed the defence. So it was 10-0 to Nottingham in the first sort of 20 minutes. Great play by, like I say, Nottingham. They played the percentage game better than Telford, and then tables turned a bit in the second half. Telford came back into it. They actually got themselves 2 points in front at one point, and then they made another uncharacteristic error from a kick-off. They let the ball go dead, and Nottingham took the last try. But it was a nail-biter. 20 points to 22 it finished, and it was a cracking game.
Yeah, it's a bit of a decent crowd there as well. Good atmosphere.
Yes.
And Telford also fielded a development side, didn't they? So they had, was it over 40 players that were involved in rugby this weekend?
Yeah, 43 players took to the pitch this weekend in Telford. So they played a development fixture against Staffordshire Quantums, which was played in really good spirit. I think they mixed the teams up a little bit just to sort of make sure it was a proper development game. And yeah, really good to see a number of, I think, 8-10 players playing the first ever game of rugby league. Awesome to see. Yeah,
and some age players as well that were getting involved and playing. And I think they uncovered a few little nuggets, like a few talented players there, which they'll be quite keen to keep hold of.
Yeah, some top quality under-19s rugby union talent came to sort of try their hand at rugby league for the first time. And from all accounts, they really enjoyed it. So hopefully these players come back and they play again. I think there's another development fixture this week as well. So hopefully they're getting back for the second outing. Yeah, it's interesting. I like the idea of like sharing players and, and doing that kind of thing, because the worst thing, I think the biggest crime with these development games is that, teams turn up and get an absolute like whacking. Yeah.
And it puts players off and they never come back, especially when they're playing away. You know, so if you had them lads from Quantums perhaps come down, got a dick in by a team that was, you know, we're calling it a development team, but it's not.
Yeah.
Then, you know, that's not very good for the growth of the game. However, you know, it was a little bit one-sided at first, to then start sharing players and for it to be a true development fixture.
Well, yeah,
was bang on.
It's all in the spirit of the game, and players are never going to learn anything by having 70, 80 points put past them. So, yeah, I think teams help out like that. It's great to see. I just want to touch back on Nottingham as well. The fixture between Telford and Nottingham, I think what I found interesting, I think Nottingham are probably used to playing at, I wouldn't say a higher standard, but that sort of standard week in, week out, because they've come down from the Yorkshire League, haven't they? So I think they're used to grinding out the wins.
Yeah.
And I think that was the difference between the two sides. Skill-wise, talent on the pitch, there was nothing between the two sides. They just knew how to grind a win out, and I think that'll be a bit of a learning curve for some of the teams in the Midlands this year who haven't sort of played in Yorkshire and things like that. And it's just going to make the Midlands division even tighter this year. I think it's really great to see.
Exciting. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, and we caught up with I caught up with both head coaches after the game, Joe and Nathan. So here's a clip now.
Just silly mistakes, really. We got back into it again. Unfortunately, we seem to keep giving the scores away, but we got back into it, and then Coach Killers were letting the ball bounce out on a kick-off, and then we kick it out on a drop out, and it's just like 2 mistakes, and then they score again. Just need to start turning negatives into positives. The boys know that, and we'll hopefully go next week against. We need to make a simple game simple and not make it difficult like we did today. Nottingham come here with 16 players and made a game look very simple. They did the basics right. They completed. They kept us. Made us go 90 metres most sets, and that's what won them the game in the end. It's stressful. Week in, week out. It's a learning curve each week. 2 losses now. It'd be nice to get my first win next week.
We knew it'd be tough coming here. Defending champions. We've not been here for years, and we were looking forward to coming back and renewing some old rivalries. A really good game. We were pleased we improved from last week, and we knew it was going to be tough, and Telford made it tough for us. It was at times, then we made a couple of boo-boos, so it's one where if we can complete high, we know we're going to be in the game most weeks if we can get a high completion rate. But Telford showed that when we got a bit sloppy and made a couple of unforced errors, we then didn't touch the ball for about 10 minutes, and they were down here and scored 2 or 3 tries. So, we've just got to make sure we complete high every week. It's the cliche, but it's true. We played Oxford last week, and they gave us a real good game. They had some really good players. We knew today would be tough. I think we've got Sherwood next in a Nottinghamshire Cup game, so we know they turned Telford over last week. We know they'll be tough. So I don't think there's going to be any weak teams here. I think every team is going to have some people who can play and pass and kick and score tries. So we're just looking forward to whoever's next up.
Okay, interesting. Good to hear them speak. Both speak really well and really clear. So thanks for that. You've got the table there, Karl. How's the table sitting at the minute?
So the table at the minute, so you got Coventry Bears and Nottingham Outlaws joint top. Both played 2, both won 2. You got Sherwood Wolfhunter a little bit below them, but they've only played the 1 game, so they're currently on 2 points. Oxford are sitting on 2 points, and Birmingham are sitting on 2 points. Birmingham have won 1 and lost 1. And the bottom half of the table, you got Leamington, Telford, and Swindon St George, all on 0 points at the minute.
Yeah, so you got the current Midlands champions there at the bottom of the table at the minute.
Yeah, and they'll be playing top of the table side Coventry Bears this weekend, so that should be a really interesting game.
Is that one of your big 6 this week?
Yeah, it's one of the big 6 this week.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned for Karl's big 6 games that he's picked out that must watch, or at least pay attention to the scores. Okay, moving on to the next story then, Karl.
So it were the Saints Leeds double this weekend. The women were in a Challenge Cup dress rehearsal, and the men's side, we'll talk about the men's side in a minute. But yeah, the first game of the weekend was Saints women versus Leeds Rhinos. This is a Challenge Cup dress rehearsal, like I just said. We're a week away from the Challenge Cup, are we? 2 weeks away from the Challenge Cup final. So really interested. These two teams are the top two sides, really, I think you can say, in the Women's Super League this year. So it was interesting to see who came out on top. And it was St Helens that started much better team. And Faye Gaskin had an absolute rocket of a game, scoring all 10 points in the first half.
Yeah, she's calling herself a bit of an aged player now. Like she's almost actively encouraging new talent through, like youth through. And I don't know how many seasons she's got left now. That sounds to me like a massive story for this upcoming final. Like I'm not saying she won't be playing next year, but if she's getting towards the end of her season, these kind of things can be. It's like when James Graham had his final game. You know what I mean? It was the James Graham and Sean O'Loughlin. They both had their final game, didn't they? You know what I mean? And it was a massive story behind an incredible event, and it's these things brewing, which is quite exciting.
Well, she's doing quite a lot of media work, isn't she now? So she's lining herself with that. So maybe that's the side of a career that she's looking to take. But yeah, great performance. So 10-0 to Saints at half time. Leeds pulled one back. I think Saints got another penalty. It finished 12 points to 6. Incredibly tight game and really high standard, really high quality game of rugby it was.
Yeah, from what I saw, that one of the key things was like Casey's been bossing it at Leeds this season, and they just shut her down. They gave her no time, no space. And that was massive for them. The Saints D was just really quick off the mark and just give her no space. And you can't operate like that,
No. And then the second game of the weekend, Mr. Rowan Smith's head is well and truly on the chopping block now with the Leeds Rhinos fans. So yeah, Saints took Leeds apart in the second fixture of the weekend.
Yeah, they did. And I had Saints down to win. You know what I mean? I thought they were going to win all day long. Yeah, Rowan Smith reported in the news this week that he's not really listening to the naysayers and the negative comments in the press, but there's a lot of people now that are kind of unhappy with the progress of Leeds. When you look at the last 5 or 6 seasons, they've been sort of middle of the table, and that's not acceptable as a Leeds team. You know what I mean? It's just not part of their identity and where they should be.
But do you put that down to coaching, or do you put that down to the money they've had to spend on players? Where is it? Is it the youth system? They're not bringing enough youth players through. You can't always blame it on one guy, can you? I mean, you're a Leeds fan. What are your thoughts?
No, I don't think you can blame it on one guy. Although,
do you think they haven't had the investment that they've needed?
Oh, they've had the investment. You could look at some of the stars.
This year they have, haven't they? Yeah.
Well, every year there's been this exciting story of they brought big players in. Yeah, you go back to like when they brought in Aidan Caesar, Blake Austin. I mean, 2 stars that are just like Aidan Caesar at Huddersfield was brilliant. Blake Austin, everyone knows the talent that he's got, and Blake Austin was like one of the standout players. He did so much off the ball as well as on the ball. Sometimes he could play like a forward, he could play like an half-back. It was just, it was great, and they messed it up. And Aidan Caesar seemed to be stifled. Them two had played like when they was younger, and everyone thought it was going to be a great connection because of that. It didn't really work out. Fast forward to this season, Brodie Croft doing some great stuff, and he's been able to run a bit more now.
So what you're saying is they've had some big, massive stars, and he's just not getting the best out of the team as a whole.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's the joke is that he takes great players and makes them average.
There are many points off the top though.
No, I know they're not.
What is it? 4 points off the top. Yeah, they're not. It's still tight. Is that Super League this year?
Yeah, it is tight. But there's little games that I think they should be more competitive in, even if they don't win.
Where do you think they should be? If you looked at that side at the start of the season, right, they're never going to finish top. I don't think. Wigan, Saints, I think we're always going to be the top 2. Where do you see them finishing this year? At the start of the season, what was your predictions?
I can't remember what I actually said. I think I was like decided with my heart a little bit, but there's 6, 7 in the league side for me. Just like that middle of the line. Do you think they're down the bottom, Mike?
Well, no, I think that where they're sat at the minute it accurately portrays how they're playing. But I would at the start of the season, I would have said they'd have been about 3rd, 4th, really.
Why? Based on what?
Because the players they brought in, like we've just said, that they did spend and that it looked like a quality side at the start of the year. So I don't think he's getting the best out of them.
No, well, and this is it. So they've had the investment, they've had the money, they've had the ability to bring fresh players in. Those players just haven't performed to their potential, and and for whatever reason that is, I don't know.
Couple of fringe players as well who've been brought in. Jacksonfield? No.
Yeah, Jacksonfield.
Yeah, Jacksonfield. Yeah, he was brought in. He had a bit of a blinder the other week, but then that's all changed, and he was shipped out on loan this week to Halifax. So does it? And maybe he doesn't know his strongest lineup yet.
Well, I think we can go around. We can talk about this all day long, but for whatever reason, it's okay. Either bet on the youth, get Jacksonfield in, and create a team around that, or stick with your proven Aussies that or I don't know. It's just like,
all right.
Let me tell you this. So something needs agitated because you need to stimulate like an improvement in performance. Now, whether that's new players coming in, we've tried that, or whether it's a new head coach coming in, we haven't tried that. Do you know what I mean? And this is the only other thing there is you start looking at the wider, the board. You look at the board there. Now, I think there may have been issues there in the last few years, but I think, there's a lot of fans that are not happy, and I think right now they're going, he's the problem. So.
I think the fans made their voices clear with the crowd they took to St Helens as well this weekend. They didn't take many fans there, so that gives you an indication of how the feeling is amongst the Leeds stronghold. Talking about coaches under fire, there's another one we've got to mention. Been reported in the press this week. Ian Watson at Huddersfield is also under pressure. They haven't won at home this year, but there's two ways you can look at that. Is that you can have a look at say, well, when they go away, their away form's brilliant, but to not win a game at home is a little bit worrying for Huddersfield.
I get that on paper. When I watched the Huddersfield game this weekend, I watched it with this in mind, like Ian Watson, what's he doing right, what's he doing wrong, what's the team doing right. Now, when I was watching the team, like they were working together, they were connected, they were throwing shapes together, they was doing stuff at pace, they were defending well, they were rock solid, and I couldn't really see anything that was dramatically wrong. They just weren't finished. It was like the icing on the cake, and some decisions went against them, and some things didn't quite come off. And when I was looking at them, I'm like, no, they're a good, steady, middle to upper middle team in the table. So I've got no problem with Ian Watson.
I think that's the difference between Leeds and Huddersfield. Is if you looked at the Huddersfield squad at the start of the season, you would have said mid-table team.
Yeah.
Leeds, you would have had them slightly higher because of the personnel that they brought in. So, it don't really surprise me where Huddersfield are sitting at the minute. And I think it's kind of what you would have expected from that squad at the start of the season. They have punched above the weight for a couple of seasons, haven't they? Jake Connor not playing as well.
Yeah, dropped, wasn't he?
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, he's obviously, he lost his head. I think people getting into him. He is the pantomime villain, and we spoke about this in the last show. And I think he just needed sitting down. Not just, but I think if he'd have played him, I don't know what repercussions there'd have been if he got bloody, sent off again or involved in some kind of controversy on the day. So a little bit of damage limitation there, but also maybe Jake Connor just needs some headspace and just needs.
Yeah, I think that could be
whether it's a lesson, whether it's time to reflect or whatever. But he's hot and cold. He's either a massive asset or he's a liability, and he needs to decide what he's going to be. And also the team, when matches are close and things are just not quite coming off. Yes, you need the X factor, but they also don't need one person letting them down because they've riled up the wrong person, or they can't keep their mouth shut, or whatever. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, I love watching Jake Connor play.
I do.
I think he's a great player, and I love to see him get under other players' skins.
I do.
But it's just part of his game. It's, whether you like it or not, it's a strong part of his game.
But tell me why you wouldn't like it. When we talk about Super League you get these fans, don't you, online, the keyboard warriors, Super League shit, this guy's not got no stars and all that. And you got someone there who goes out and puts on a performance, right? Sometimes he's like bloody the pantomime villain. It's a performance. But it's the talking. Why do we berate him, call him a shithouse, throw bottles at him? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just bad. Why can't we just say, right, it's one of the shithouses in the game.
We're talking about him right now.
Exactly.
So,
but what we're not doing is we're not saying he's shit. He shouldn't be in the game. He's he's the most hated player in Super League history, because he shouldn't be like that. And these like negative Negatron fans who just like slate him. Just come on, talk about it. You can't say 1 minute that you've got nothing to talk about in Super League and Super League's bland compared to the stars in the NRL. And then give him shit, fucking you said fuck it. Some of the comments online, it's like, what do you want? Like, crown green balls.
Yeah, well, no doubt he'll be back next week, and I can't wait to see how he goes.
But I love watching him play.
Yeah,
when I look at the Huddersfield team, he is the player I look out for most, and so
he's the sort of player I want to see playing for England, getting under the Aussie skin as well. I think they won't know how to handle somebody like that.
No, they won't. Okay, so let's move on. Next story.
This is a great story. USA under-19s are going to make their debut this year in the European Championship. So it's become a Six Nations. Incredibly exciting.
It is exciting, and I think whatever you think of USA, what they would bring is perhaps some investment, a bit of interest from a massive audience. You know what I mean? It can only be a good thing. So I like the fact that they're making the effort, making the time to get involved in this tournament, and it'd be interesting to see them play.
Yeah, and I think USA Rugby League starting to get its house in order. I mean, I don't know all the politics around what's gone on in USA, but I think there's been a lot of it for all sorts of split factions and all sorts of stuff going on. But it seems like with the NRL going there last year, and I think the governing bodies finally got sorted out, and then to have an under-19 side coming to the other side of the world to play in a Six Nations competition, it's great. And it's great for international rugby. We don't have enough of it, and we're not going to have much to watch this year. So I hope people get behind this. I hope we get some sort of televised footage, or it's streamed or something. I'm really looking for. So the teams that are taking place. So you've got Serbia playing Ukraine, and Scotland are playing the USA, and then England and France are already going to proceed to the semi-finals because they're the sort of two seeded sides. Yeah, and then they're going to play the winners of the other two fixtures, and then the losers are going to fight out for like fifth and sixth place. So they're going to get at least two fixtures. Great.
This is and this is what my theory is. Like, I truly believe we've got the greatest sport in the world. Do you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah, and so why is it not the number one sport in the UK? Right. One, we've got this stupid, terrible game called football that that just gets in the way, right? And then you've got rugby union, right? And I think the problem why rugby league is always, but I think the biggest thing is the bureaucracy that you get in rugby union club. You get people there that have never even tried league. They don't know what they're fucking talking about, right? And they're like, oh, it's fucking stupid, rolling around up the floor, blah, blah, blah. And scrumming's fucking, scrum's crap. There's no rucking. Yeah, well, who wants to fucking watch rucking and who wants to watch scrumming? It's just shit to watch. Anyway, so that's that. Now, that's the context.
Yeah.
Right, now, transfer that to America. The exciting thing about that is you ain't got any rugby union bureaucracy.
No. You
know what I mean? You haven't got that traditional thing of like, where they had this split of rugby as a whole, you know what I mean? And the two games separated, and it's always been that poor northern orphan up in the dark, dingy, cold north of England, and they haven't got that in America. So it's got the potential to be massive. You drop then NRL, exciting Super League teams into Vegas, and give them an idea of like what a great sport is, and the Americans get behind it. It's got to be amazing. Like, it's quite exciting when you think about it like that.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly exciting. But they've got to do it the right way, haven't they? They've got to build from the ground up. They've got to build these community sides. And there are teams knocking them out across the states, probably a bit few and far between at the minute, but hopefully we can get more and more. And then just having that, Americans love playing for the country, though, as anybody does, but just to have that under-19 squad where the young players can go and represent the country on the other side of the world, playing against England and Scotland and up-and-coming nations. It's exciting, and I can't wait to see what happens with it.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, moving on. Next story, please.
So from a Williams rant to a Williams weekly. So yeah, it's a tackle 6.
Okay, so for my Williams weekly, I want to go back to Huddersfield right now. I've seen things happen at a Huddersfield game now 2 weeks on the trot. Right, so we was there at Warrington when they played Warrington. And then I watched it on the telly at the weekend, right? Now, what it is whenever there's a scuff. No, let me put this right. Tui Lolohea. Whenever there's a scuffle, there's a bit of beef.
Yep.
He's developed this, what I'm going to call the Tui toss, right? He grabs a player by the shirt, the collar.
Yeah.
And flings them onto the floor, right? Now, both times, that's just completely gone under the radar. Like the referee's not called him out or anything. Doesn't seem to be any repercussions from basically just wrestling somebody, like throw him on the floor. First time I saw it, I thought good tactic because you got him on the floor. You haven't thrown a punch, but you're showing that you're not going to take a backward step, and you know what I mean. And you've created this scuffle, but you've not thrown a punch, right? When I saw it again this week, I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this now, because there's got to be some repercussion. Because, are we just going to end up with a load of players that are grabbing their opposite number by the collar, throwing them on the floor, and everyone dives on the floor? Because I just think there's got to be some repercussions from that.
Well, fighting in rugby now is a bit of a joke, in all honesty.
Well, yeah, there is no fighting now, is there, compared to how it used to be?
No, so when it now biffs off, it's like, I'm going to just try and overpower my opposite number just by wrestling them, or because the second you throw a punch, it's 4 or 5 game ban in it minimum these days. George Williams got off with one last week, by the way.
Yes, he did.
Absolutely didn't get picked up by the disciplinary, but anyway, we'll move on. So it's quite pathetic watching them fight, because they all jump in, argue.
What they do is
grab each other's collars.
Yeah, they grab shirt.
They
sort of like punch them in the chin, in like making it look like they're grabbing the shirt, and it's I don't like it. But anyway, it's not much to watch if I put it that way.
Yeah.
But I just don't think you can literally rack someone from the collar off the ball, and kind of walk away, nothing said. I just don't think we need it in the game.
It's a proper judo toss, isn't it, that he's developed? That's what it is. Yeah, he's good at it. Yeah. Well, I suppose if you want to get one over on your opposite number, but you can't throw a punch, you got to do something, mate. So, yeah, get them on floor. Work them on ground, I don't know.
Well, I'm interested in what other people think. You know what I mean? I'm all for a bit.
Right, there's a question then, right?
Go on.
Because I know the party line is, we need to clean the game up. There's young people watching the game. Biffing off, right? I'm all for it, mate. If it happens, it happens. If you throw a punch, fair enough, you're getting sent off. But have we cleaned it up too much?
I don't know. There's still some bigots. Did you watch Pape?
Right, yeah, okay.
Fucking hell, he was bending people in half. Like you can do it in other ways, can't you? With bigots and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking. I'm not talking about people having a fight.
I know you're not.
What I'm talking about is it's like a bit of grubbiness, but it's going under the radar. You know what I mean? And I don't know what my talking point is, but I've just seen there's Tui toss, right? And I don't want it developing in the game and becoming a thing where people are just getting flinged about by the collar.
Well, I think if you're going to get 5 or 6 match ban for throwing a punch, that is what you're going to see, mate. You're going to see people get thrown to the ground and biffed in other ways.
So are we doomed then to the Tui toss?
Yeah. It's here to stay.
Part of the game now.
It's here to stay. Yeah.
It will be forever immortalised in the inability to punch, but every ability to rag someone on the floor and bounce their head off the grass.
Yeah. I'm all for it.
Okay, so that's the Williams Weekly this week. I'm really interested in what you think of it. I don't, this Williams Weekly, I never have like the answer. You know what I mean? It's just something that strikes
me. It's just a talking point.
Yeah, it's just a talking point and stimulate a bit of conversation. Anyway, so
I tell you what, I'm just going to give a bit of a nudge because Williams Weekly, was it last week on Williams Weekly? We was talking about the NRL play their women's games on 35 minutes a match. And we didn't have an answer for that, did we? It was like we didn't know if it was good or bad. But on this week's podcast, two women from Telford Raiders, we put that question to them, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, and it was quite an interesting answer that come back. It was basically like, well, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
which is almost like, oh right, maybe, it's interesting. Like they literally don't mind. They don't see it as like. A slur against female, like equality and that kind of thing.
Don't give too much away.
Oh,
though.
right, okay.
So it's on this week's episode on Thursday. So Thursday's podcast. Yeah, tune in to watch it.
Yeah, interesting answer. All right, so moving on to other talking points. Karl, as always, you pick out your big six for this week. Who have you got on your list?
Yep. So picked a mix of community fixtures this week, and I've got some Super League and League One. So in the Southern Conference League, Brentwood Eels are taking on Bedford Tigers. That's the 6th versus 7th in the Southern Conference League. So both of those teams will be looking to pick a win up this week. Telford versus Coventry in the Midlands Premier League. And then in the Merit League, we've got Aston Warriors, brand new club from Birmingham, playing against the New Ravens this week. So looking forward to seeing them take to the field for the first time. Yeah,
just cutting back to Telford, obviously they've got their aim to have another development side out. Is that?
No, so that's the... Telford are playing Lincolnshire Lions as well in a development game. So they've got two. Lincolnshire Lions is games 12:30, and then they're playing the Coventry Bears at 2:30.
Yeah, so hopefully another boatload of players out there on the pitch. So yeah, good effort.
Super League then, turning our attention to Super League. This is a big game. This Leeds v Castleford. Castleford is starting to build some momentum. They always like to knock the big neighbour over. It could be a close one, that I think.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game to watch.
And then Hurricanes are playing Keighley this week.
Massive game for Hurricanes.
Yeah, Hurricanes picked up another win against North Wales Crusaders this week. I think that they're really starting to get up that table now and push into that top five. However, Keighley Cougars this week, massive game for them. They're currently top of the league. Beat Sean Long's Oldham side this week.
Yeah,
I didn't expect to see that result, but yeah, this is a massive uphill struggle for Midlands, but it'll be a real marker to see where they really are, I think.
Yeah, amazing.
And then the biggest game of the weekend, I've been waiting for this for a while because I'm really enjoying watching Warrington play, and we're going to really see if they have the potential this year. Wigan Warriors, Warrington v Wigan, I think it's on Saturday. Can't wait for that.
Is that home or away for
it's
Warrington?
At Warrington.
Right, okay. So no doubt there's going to be a huge crowd, noisy crowd.
Yeah.
And
again, it's a Challenge Cup warm-up. Do you think, question, do you think they're both going to field strongest sides for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Matty Pete is a competitor, and I don't think he'll see any value in resting some of his biggest players. If Warrington win and they get the psychological edge in the run up to the Challenge Cup, I don't think he'll like the idea of that. So I don't think he's going to rest any players. And Sam Burgess, I don't think he knows any other way, but just like full steam ahead. So I don't think he'll be resting players.
As a fan, right? If you're going into a Challenge Cup final, do you want your side to win the week before the final against the same team? Because I remember watching Bradford v Saints years back, and we'd beat them the week before a final, and it were almost like we ain't going to do it twice. And then we'd go lose the Challenge Cup final to them. It's a difficult one. It's a stupid one really, because you never want your side to lose there, but sometimes you feel like, are we going to beat them twice? I'd rather we lost the league game and won in the cup.
I think you can't let that doubt get into your head, can you?
No.
Like if you're thinking, oh, can we beat them twice? What you're really saying is, oh, I don't really back our performance. We might be able to pull it off once, but I don't think we can think now. Warrington. Let's take Warrington. So we're going to let that. That's not in the DNA.
No.
Right? Warrington. They can't allow themselves to think like that. They need to think that if they're getting in contention to go and play in Las Vegas against NRL teams, right? They need to be thinking we are the best club in this country right now, and they need to be. So whatever they bring, we'll stick to our process. We'll stick to our games. We've got the ability, and we'll beat them twice if we need to. I think that's the way they've got to look at it, because anything else suggests doubt, and if there's doubt, there's no doubt, and it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's my take on it. Either way, anything can happen on the day, and it's definitely an exciting fixture.
Yep. So that,
it's interesting. It's happened twice now, isn't it? Like the women's game, you've had like a precursor fixture to the main, the Challenge Cup final.
Well,
and then
it doesn't help that we have these bloody loop fixtures where you play teams 3 times a year. I can't stand it. But yeah, so there's always a chance that it's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, so more exciting rugby league. The rugby league world is really exciting at the minute. So thank you for watching today. If you haven't subscribed already, then make sure you do. We do more videos than just this news. We do a prediction round. We do a regular podcast where we have interesting guests, interesting conversations from all the way across rugby league. So make sure you subscribe to get notifications of those. Drop in final words, Karl.
Watch this week's podcast on Thursday with 2 ladies from Telford Raiders who got a chance to play against Leeds Rhinos and St Helens on their first season. So yeah, watch that.
Okay, so until the next video, take care.